calls my next guest the Susie Orman of happiness. She's a psychologist who studies the science of joy. Welcome, Dr. Aymee Coget.
Thank you.
Today's theme is overcoming adversity, and needless to say, you know, as I always say, no one leaves this planet unscathed. There's obviously people out there that are watching, probably people in this audience, who are feeling down in the dumps. Something has happened to them, and they don't know how to pull themselves out of that pit of depression or sadness or, you know, bitterness. So what can you do? What can you tell us to give us some guidelines on how to move from point A to point B, where you can begin to feel, you know, joy in your heart again?
Right.
And laugh.
Great question. And during these times, there are terrible circumstances that people find themselves in. The very first step that anyone can take is acceptance of the current situation. Now, without this acceptance, you're just sitting there thinking about all of your problems. And so then you're going into a downward spiral, and we definitely don't want that. So acceptance is the very first step.
You know, I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, and I think that one of the great life lessons that I got out of it is that, you know, for a while you're going to kick and scream, and you're going to say, why me, Lord? Why did this have to happen? But no one has a crystal ball. We don't really know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. So at any given time, when you're sideswiped on one Wednesday afternoon, you know, and life as you knew it changes forever, you're going to kick and scream, but then eventually you have to stop. You have to pick yourself up from your bootstraps, and you have to play the hand that's dealt you. Play it as elegantly and courageously as you can, because that's what you got.
Right. Right.
So how do people, what else can you tell us?
So the next step is to live in the moment. So more than likely, that terrible circumstance happened in the past. And so we have to move forward at some point. And it turns out that a recent Harvard study actually showed that 47% of people are thinking about something other than what they're doing in the moment.
That's terrible. They're not present. You know, every day is a gift, and you live in the moment.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this is great. Accept what has happened as being what is, and live in the moment. This is the situation. Now what?
Take the corners of your lips and put them towards your cheekbones.
Yes, smiling is really good. You know, laughing, smiling, even like sometimes they say act the way you want to be, and eventually you'll start to feel that way. And it does kind of trick the brain into thinking that you maybe are getting a little bit happy.
Whatever it takes.
Yes.
Right. Yes, there is science behind smiling, and the musculature of our face does trigger happy brain chemistry. And the whole reason why we want to be happy is so we can access our brain best. Now, when we're in the midst of adversity, we really want to be the cool firefighter in the midst of the fire. And so that's one quick way, is simply by smiling. Then, have you heard of that, that saying, do it with a smile?
Yes.
That's
yes,
exactly it.
That's what it is. Well, that's great. Is there anything else that you would say? I mean, honestly, it sounds easy, and maybe it even sounds trite, but it really does make a difference. Don't wear your face in a frown. Put your face in a smile, and you know, I think that you're taking one step in front of the other to move towards feeling joy again.
Absolutely. The next step really needs to be based in realistic optimism. Now, optimism sometimes gets a bad rap, thinking that people are Pollyannas or they're not thinking seriously about the situation. So approaching any adversity with realistic optimism is key, because you can't absolutely be pessimistic, because you're never going to overcome the challenge.
Right.
Nor can you be blindly optimistic either. So realistic optimism is about approaching the situation with a positive outlook, yet having a plan to achieve the goal.
Okay, so how do you assess what's realistic versus what's a fantasy? You have to really be like, what's attainable?
Right.
So,
for example, an optimist stands at the bottom of the mountain and looks at the top and says, I can see myself at the top. A pessimist stands at the bottom of the mountain and says, no way am I going to make it up there, and turns around and walks the other way. A realistic optimist stands at the bottom of the mountain and says, I'm going to prepare for the journey. I'm going to bring an extra pair of shoes. I'm going to make sure I have enough food, and I can see myself at the top.
I love that. I love that. That is great advice, everyone. Great advice. Thank you, Dr. Coget. Really, I really appreciate you coming on the show so much, because you put what this whole show is about into context. Thank you, really.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Coming up, one of the world's rock and roll legends gets candid about his most personal album yet, and later gives a very special performance with his son. You don't want to miss this.